What is up? Today's a little bit different. We're going to talk about notebooks. I'm old school. I still use a pencil and paper, pen and paper a lot. For me, writing, the act of actually writing it down helps me, and I like to have something physical to go back and look at. You can always use a phone, and that's fine, and it works for a lot of people. Things can happen with phones. Things can happen with notebooks, but I don't just use technology for my note taking. But I've kind of developed a way to make one of these little notebooks last for a very long time. A notebook is probably going to start wearing out before you actually use up the paper inside. I started doing this a little while ago, and it's just worked out great. And you can use different colored Post-its, and then that way you kind of know, you can kind of have assigned tasks to different colors if that works for you. I don't necessarily do that, but it would come in handy. And then you can also, if you're making a note or a to-do list for someone else, you can just simply peel it out of your book and hand it to that person, and now they have your notes. So this is kind of how I do it. Get yourself a notebook. This is the Field book. It's basically a knockoff of the Field Notes. But these are very inexpensive. You get, a whole little package of these for like, $10 or whatever. We'll use, let's use blue. Nice contrasting color. So the way I do it, I never use the front page. I like to save that. But anything that I need to make sure that I keep that's going to stay in this book for the whole time, I write it on the actual paper of the notebook. I use a pencil. I like to be able to erase and alter my notes without scribbling through them. I like the Pentels. These work really well for me. I think it's the 0.5, but all of them work really good. And then what I do is I just kind of line it up as such. And with this style notebook, you can get as many as you want in here, but I usually do about 3 per page. You could do 4, you could do 1, you could do 2, you can do whatever you want. But basically now what you have is you have turned this single page into 3. Or 4 if you want to write some permanent notes at the bottom. But you can just do a to-do list and then list out whatever it is, and then now you have it. It's in your pocket. But let's say this list is something that you're going to pass on to somebody else. Maybe it's a grocery list, or it's a chore list for your children, or whatever it may be. Now you can just peel this off and give this to the next person and put you a new piece on there. And basically you just end up with basically triple the amount of usable writing space in your notebook. But now you can also pass it on without having to tear it out or anything like that. And you can do that across multiple pages in here, and it's not going to make your book super thick. So you can still carry it in your pocket or your bag or whatever. I have one that I use for work that I have multiple pages with that done in, and it's still almost just as thin as it was to begin with. But then you can also have your permanent notes somewhere else, depending on what your note taking is for. If it's for work and you're trying to collaborate with another team or whatever, you can have your notes permanently in your book on one side, and then the ones that you're going to pass over to the other team on the other side. And depending on which variety of Post-its you get, for the most part, it doesn't damage or rip this paper. You could even get the Field Notes version that is the really tough paper. It's waterproof, it's tear-proof, and these peel and stick a lot easier from that. But I haven't had it, tear a page. It will you can just see there, it kind of does make the page curl a little bit because it is putting a little bit of stress on the paper. Just, the stickiness and whatnot sometimes will make it curl, but again, you're just going to close it and put it back in your bag or your pocket or whatever. You can use the different colors, like I said, for different tasks. Maybe you have some red ones or orange ones, and that's high priority stuff, and then, or you get, grocery list, to-do list, whatever. But you just basically turn your notebook into, an infinity book or whatever you want to call it, or forever notebook. And you've tripled, quadrupled the amount of, writing space you have, depending on how you set it up. But you can always, if a task is done, you can just pull that out. Now you can throw that away, or if you can hand it off, you can do whatever. But yeah, may not be interesting for everyone, but it works really well for me. I think it's a great idea. Like I said, I got the idea from Van Neistat, and he uses like a sheet of cardstock folded up, and it works great for him. I was like, I'm going to give it a shot, but I already carry these notebooks, so I'm just basically going to do the same idea, but in a notebook form. And then there you go. Hope this was helpful in some way to someone. Like I said, I'm old school. I like good old pen and paper. Till the next one, take care.